Today we have a great text. I love this text. It's from Paul. And Paul says this to us. He says, "You show that you are a letter from Christ, the result of our ministry, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not on tablets of stone, but on tablets of human hearts." What Paul is talking about here today is how are we love letters to God? How are we love letters to God? Will you pray with me? Holy God, help us to become masters of ourselves, that we might be the servants of others. Take our minds and think through them, our lips and speak through them. Take our hearts and set them on fire. Amen. Letter writing is quickly becoming a lost art, handwritten letter writing, that is. With emails and texts and tweets, we are communicating with great expedience now in the world. I mean, you can communicate things boom, 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 super fast. But with that expedience, we also have had some loss. I mean, there are just some things, like being in love, that cannot be captured in a tweet or a text or a disappointment. Recently, my most recent love letter actually came through text, and we had plans. This is the 20th year of my ordination, so we had plans for a nice dinner out. And it's interesting when you're in ministry, when one person is ministry, you got to be ready for plans to change. When both people are ministry, it makes it a lot more difficult. And so this was just one of those times where Andrew's schedule changed up in such a way that we couldn't go to dinner. And so needless to say, I was a little disappointed. And I was disappointed, and the phone, kept ringing, and I just kept ignoring it. I just need a little time to process when I get this. "I'm thinking of you." I don't respond. The next text is this: "Are you there?" And then the next one is this: "I know we can't connect tonight. I'm sorry, but I promise we'll have dinner soon, a romantic dinner soon. And of course, I love you." So, of course, I responded with lum, which is our family's way of saying love you more. Yep, that was the very last love letter I received from my husband. Romantic kind of guy, isn't he? Yeah. But it's not only texting, it's emails too. We want to capture the way we feel in an email. We want to capture the way we feel. And really, sometimes we move so quick, we don't think about who's going to read that email and how it might come across. See, letter writing gives us an opportunity to truly express ourselves, right? I mean, think about the love letters you used to write. You can't, in an email, put a little bit of perfume on the letter, right? When you get ready to send it. You can't do that in an email. You also can't, in an email, really make it clear, an exclamation point. Have you ever made them so hard that you almost put a hole in the paper? You're trying to make your point known of how much you love somebody. No, in today's world, we just push send, even though we're not even sure our thoughts are complete. It's very different than taking the time to do something like this. This is one letter, a love letter. This should be a very easy letter to write. Words should come easily. And in short, it should be simple for me to tell you how desperately happy I was to open the paper and see the announcement of our engagement. But somehow, I can't possibly say all in a letter I should like to. I love you, precious, with all my heart, and to know that you love me means my life. How often I have thought about the immeasurable joy that will be ours someday. How lucky our children will be to have a mother like you. That was written by that guy, George H. Bush, to his beautiful bride, Barbara, when they were getting ready to get married. In fact, George is known for writing many, many love letters to Barbara, and I'm wondering if that's what kept their relationship so strong for all of those years, that he would take the time to let her know how much he loved her on a regular basis. You could see that in her recent funeral and in his really the sadness and the loss, because he loved big. It was also a big loss too. Jake Wiedemann is one of 11 penmans in the world today, and he is actually the youngest penman ever to get the certificate. Handwriting is Jake's life. So much so that not only is he a master calligrapher, but he has devoted the whole of his life to writing. He makes pens and stationery and all kinds of art that is based on writing. Jake is an amazing man who feels that he is on a mission to reintroduce the world to the art form and the gift that comes with writing. For he knows personally the power of the pen. And he has made it his lifelong goal to remind all of us of the power of the pen in the digital age. He notes that there are connections between the pen and how we learn, think, and carry out our cultural heritage. He is perhaps one of the strongest advocates for teaching handwriting in schools, and even has the case studies to back it up as to why it's important. There is great value in the power of handwriting. Remember when you used to practice your letters? Do you remember that? They gave you the paper with the little things on the middle of it, and you would practice your letters. You know, we used to think that was just practicing our letters. No, it's actually, Jake says, it's practicing muscle memory as well. It's teaching muscle memory. It's teaching us how we'll find our voice through our writing and our own style of writing. It's teaching us artistic expression. And he's afraid that we're losing that element in today's world. Now, I have to tell you, there is good news in the writing, in the world around cursive and writing. Do you know that now there are 23 states that currently are teaching writing again in school? Because if you didn't know, they stopped teaching writing in the midst of the digital age because it didn't seem important. Our own representative and Senator Jean Leising has made it her lifelong duty. Actually, the last 7 years, she has worked so hard to get writing courses back in the schools in Indiana. And finally, in April, she had her very first success. It was a little one because now it's on the books that schools may teach writing to the kids. May. I'm telling you what, I don't think Jean is done. I think it's only the start for her, and I think that we will soon be able to say that we too in the state of Indiana are part of the cause of returning to writing. You know, I agree with him. I see the power of letter writing. I mean, I'm a big Lincoln fan. Lincoln Museum, if you've ever been there in Illinois, I encourage you to go. It's in Springfield. Life is not complete leaving that museum without stopping to take a look at the letters written in Lincoln's own hand. It's a powerful, powerful experience. There is a book out there called Letters from a Birmingham Jail, written by Martin Luther King, and if you've not read that, I encourage you to do so. It's kind of his letters, his own answer or letters to the church, like Paul wrote to us, the epistles. I mean, there is a power in letters from a Birmingham jail. I don't think a text from the Birmingham jail or a tweet from the Birmingham jail really could ever hold the same kind of power as a letter from the Birmingham jail. Now, what's interesting to me is not only does writing help us, but help us in lots of different ways, like remembering what's coming next. Writing helps us with that muscle memory. Writing helps us with that muscle memory, but it also helps us work through things. Not only do we have the New Testament letters or epistles, but do you know, many of the Psalms were written almost as a letter to God. If you read the Psalms, you will see that there is a whole cycle and process that happens in that letter. Usually it's, hey, God, I'm here. Sometimes it's, God, I'm angry. Sometimes it's, God, the creation is amazing. Sometimes it's whatever it is. The angry ones are kind of interesting because the Psalms will work through, you watch the psalmists work through their anger to the end of the letter or the end of the Psalm where they're finally praising God because they've been able to work through it. I think writing is the same for us today. Now, today, of course, is the gathering or the offering of letters, and churches all over are doing this and sharing in this. And I know that Bread for the World believes that you want to do the right thing, but they also know how oftentimes when we talk about this, because we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks, how oftentimes you leave here and that kind of idea leaves you immediately. That's why you will find on your table there a suggested letter to write, and if you can't get around that, heck, we just went ahead and wrote the letter for you, and all you have to do is sign your name at the end. See, Bread for the World knows that we are a fast-moving society today. But I decided to do the other. I decided to go ahead and write a letter this past week, and it was powerful. They give you a little suggestion there. I didn't follow the suggestion. I paused and I prayed, and then I went and found, I have stationery in my home, and I found a piece of that stationery, and I found the envelopes, and I decided to write a letter to Senator Donnelly. And what's interesting to me about the letter I decided to send to Senator Donnelly, it starts with a story about somebody I know who struggled with hunger. And I'm telling you, you start reading this story and you get a little down and out, because this story is probably 20 years old, and I know that there are still people who are really hungry today. But I have to tell you, in the process of writing the letter, I was reminded that we believe we can stamp out hunger, people of faith believe we can stamp out hunger by 2030. By 2030. And I have to tell you, I'm pretty excited about it, because that's like my retirement age. And if I don't have to play with hungry people or work with hungry people, wouldn't that be amazing? I could take up golf or something. So this is my new goal. My new goal is, yes, we can do this. And as a person of faith, I believe we can do it. And you know, the words started coming. The sad story moved me into hope and promise and faith. And in the end, the letter says, come on, let's get this done, because I'm looking forward to a world without hunger. Now, I think if I had not sat down to write the letter, I'm not sure that that actually would have happened. I not only did it with that, but it's graduation season, right? We have 150 graduates that we know and love this year. And yesterday started the graduation parties. And so I decided that I would go ahead, instead of just throwing some bucks in a card and saying, love Andrew and Carolyn, that I would go ahead and write some notes to these kids. And it was really interesting to me how that connects you with that kid. How it connects you with that kid. My best friend's daughter graduated from Cathedral, and yesterday was her party. And my best friend and I, if you recall, we went to college together at Butler. So I decided to write a little note about probably some stories that her mother would prefer she didn't know. But what it ends up saying is really, this is an amazing, incredible time in your life. And I was reminded of that. And God has great things in store for you. And perhaps the greatest gift God has in store for you are those friends that you meet in college will be there 30, 40 years later, just like your mom and I. That probably would never have come if I didn't sit down and decide to write the letter. Sitting down and deciding to write a letter can make a difference, not just for you, but for those who are receiving the letter, a gift. I think Jake Weedman is really onto something here. And I think that there's something about the power of writing that not only helps with muscle memory, but I think it helps with heart memory too. In sitting down to write a letter, I am reminded that indeed I love, and that's what this muscle's meant to do. And writing a letter is a great way to tell somebody that you love them. I think Paul understood that in a very real way. He loves the church and the people of the church. He doesn't only write to communicate, but he writes to share his passion for his mission, his ministry. He shares his whole heart in these letters. As I mentioned before, 21 letters in the New Testament, most of them Paul is given credit for. And believe it or not, friends, we have not written letters that'll be put in the Bible or anything like that, but we have in common with Paul a passion and a love for God. And if we take the time to write down about that passion and love, first of all, we'll be counterculture. Second, we'll be able to impact somebody and also impact ourselves. I guess in the fast-paced culture we live in today, Paul reminds us that our very lives can be a letter to God. A love letter from God to the world. For God has written on our hearts a message of hope and promise, and perhaps today can serve as a reminder that your heart muscle needs lots of practice. And a good way to do that is by telling people you love them or writing them that you love them. See, we can be God's love letters, written out not in ink, but being led by the Spirit, as Paul says in the letter, Spirit of the living God, and trusting that Spirit and following our hearts. So today, I want to suggest to you, what kind of letter can you be? Maybe you are indeed a letter of complaint or support. That letter can go to Bread for the World. That letter could go to whatever it is that you believe in, and in the end can share, we believe, we have faith that there is hope for this world. Maybe today you could be a letter of recommendation, pausing to let a graduate know the adventure of a lifetime is just beginning. Let them know that they're loved by God and the Spirit of God will be with them as they move into the future. Maybe today you're a letter of encouragement for one who needs a little help as they take the next step on the recovery process. Maybe for you, today you can be a sympathy letter. In first service, there's a man named Andy Parks, and he gave me permission to share this story. A week ago, he shared that he came upon an accident, and he helped provide CPR and later found out that the man died. He was able to go on the internet and find where the man, his funeral service was. And he was able to go on the internet and leave a message for the family and tell the family that he was not alone when he died, that their loved one was surrounded by people who shared love with him, who cared for him as he moved into life eternal. He was able to provide that comfort by letting his heart share that message. So maybe today you too are a letter of sympathy who someone needs to know that kind of love. Maybe today you don't want to be a letter, but you want to fill out an application with your very being. We are accepting applications for gardeners at Gardens at Eskenazi Picard. And you're hired right now. Right now. In fact, after service today, we're going to head over there. If you're not sure where the gardens are or what we do, Bev's going to take us over and give a one-on-one course on participating in the garden this year. Because I guarantee you that will make your life richer and more profound. Consider this week that you are God's love letter to the world. And with your heart and your hands and your head, you can share and transform this world with the love of God. So think about, what kind of letter am I showing up as? And heck, maybe it might be a thank you note